So first, I think we should talk about why it's valuable to start this part of the Torah.
Okay.
I think it's interesting because most people grow up and they grow up they don't go beyond Hebrew school. And so they don't have their education, their Jewish education is done very much at a low end learning. And they think that Judaism is pretty shallow. Now, as they get older, they begin to learn and they begin to think more. I thought about this a lot because that was where my initial conversation ended. Like, Judaism is more deeper than an 8th grade education.
Mm-hmm. Think
about it. People go to yeshiva, they go to high school level, college level. There are people who are thinking very, very deeply. There's 1 million books in the Jewish library.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's valuable and obviously it's very deep. So just like educate yourself a little more.
Yeah.
And then I realized people also do think a lot about Judaism, but it's very meta.
It's very meta. What is that?
They're thinking about Judaism
instead of
the actual learning of it in a deep way. So they'll talk about the demographics being problematic. They'll talk about how do you pass legacy on to your children.
Mm-hmm.
They'll talk about, maybe it's a question, like a random question, like how does Judaism approach to ethical warfare? Or how do we give tzedakah fairly? Or something like that.
But they won't
open a chumash and read beyond the end of... So in this case, I think what's interesting is that we're going beyond the end of the school year, mm-hmm. which is technically when most people peter out on their education. In particular, we're starting this as a companion-ish to the book of BaMidbar.
Mm-hmm.
That was your idea.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
And to do it as a companion to BaMidbar, to do
mm-hmm.
it specifically kind of... along with everything else we're going to be doing in these conversations, mm-hmm. is to also give context and phrase... kind of frame a little bit the chumash as we go week by week, portion by portion. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe give context about what a parsha is.
Okay, amazing. So I definitely feel like that really sums up why I was so enthusiastic about doing this, because it's happened to me several times since stepping out of the religious construct that I was brought up in, and kind of moving away from that because it did feel shallow and it did feel forced, and then revisiting Judaism through freedom and through curiosity and being like, wow, I wish someone had told me all this when I was a kid, as opposed to do it because you have to, or each community or strain of Judaism with their interpretation of why kids need to or need to not do certain things. So yeah, when you say that, like, I'm excited for what happens when the school year ends, because that's exactly where I feel like I'm at in life.
That's cool. That's very cool. And I think that going into these parts of the Torah, we get back into the narrative, mm-hmm. right? So I think that to frame it like this, the 5 books of Moses is the master text. Mm-hmm. It is the thing that we do when we read the Torah a whole year. Mm. Right? The first book everybody knows is from the beginning of creation all the way through the Jews going into exile. Mm-hmm. Second book is exile, redemption, going into the desert, building the Mishkan, and then it kind of gets lost in the details. Mm-hmm. And I'm only saying this cynically because I think it's the most powerful piece. Getting lost, yeah, in the details.
And we're talking about Sefer Vayikra.
Sefer Shmot.
Sefer Shmot, okay.
And then Vayikra is laws, mostly laws, some story.
Mm-hmm.
Some narrative that ties together pieces of the law, but there's the sacrifice. It's mostly sacrifices and ritual stuff. What you can eat, what you can't eat, what you touch, what you can't touch, how to become pure, what makes you impure, the laws of tzarat, which is like this leprosy thing, and then a bunch of laws of it ends off with a piece of rebuke, where God basically rebukes the Jewish people and says, if you listen to me, great, and if you don't, I'll punish you, but if you do, I'll give you a lot of blessings. And then it kind of comes to a hard stop. BaMidbar, which is book 4, goes back. It feels very similar to book 2. Mm-hmm. It goes back to the stories, which is wonderful. And it begins to, and it's always going to have stories and laws mixed together, but it's very, very heavy on the stories. And stories that I think that even if you know the highlights, and not everyone knows the highlights.
Yeah.
Like somebody was swallowed alive. And again, if you know, then you know that's korach. And if you don't know, you're like, what is that mishagas? So it's almost swallowed alive while they were on fire. There's a bunch of stories, and some of the stories are very, very I think of it as if a parsha has one major story at the beginning, it can have crazy intense stories later on in the same parsha, and nobody knows what they are.
Yeah.
Because the first one takes the airtime.
And I think that the same thing is said for the entire 5 books, where you have these incredible stories like Moses and the burning bush, or Moses being pulled out of the river. And I think if you ask the average person, we'll probably eventually get around to this, is the copper snake and all these incredible stories where people are like, what? Well,
right.
And it's a lot of modern symbols come from that. And I feel like this is a great opportunity for me personally, for my selfish reasons, and also other people who end up tuning into this, to be able to be like, oh wow, I never heard that story. I'm so glad I did.
And to round out the reasons why we think knowing the Chumash or knowing this section of the Torah is so important, in addition to the fact that it's a great companion to going to synagogue, and not being confused as to what's going on. I have a theory called the 10,000 story theory, which I think is incredible. Obviously, because I made it up, so obviously it's incredible.
There you go.
It's Malcolm Gladwell has this thing where he says 10,000 hours, and it's not his idea; it's somebody else's idea he stole. But he says expertise comes from 10,000 hours of doing something. So if you want to be an expert musician, which you are, you spend 10,000 hours practicing your craft, not doing your craft, because if you're doing, not necessarily you're honing it, but honing your craft, sharpening your skill, being better at it. It's 10,000 hours, which is why people who are young and really good had to have started really, really early.
Okay.
I have a theory that if you want to impart any type of value system, in particular a nuanced value system, to the next generation or to yourself, you want to absorb a value system. The way that you do that is not through reading rules, because rules just tell you BaMidbar. I mean, they tell you what to do, but they don't give you all the layers of it, and how do you blend it together, and how do you fit it together. It's very hard to understand exactly how every rule applies. It says, be an honest and a good person, and always tell the truth. But what if someone's life is at stake? And what if it's your own life is at stake? What if it's somebody else's money? It's not life, it's just money. And what if it's somebody else's, it's not really yours? And what if it's somebody you hate? Do you have leeway, or do you have to always tell the truth? And even then, or maybe you should be lying. Maybe if it's saving somebody else's stuff, you should lie. And where are the boundaries of that? The way you find that out is through stories.
Yeah, I feel like ever since you and I started studying, I've understood what makes the Chachamim or the scholars so wonderful. Is they're so familiarized with the stories and the wording of the stories and the context of the stories. I feel like what makes Rashi who he is that when he's reading a book, when he's reading a story out of Melachim Bet, he's able to grammatically or numerically and in a lot of different contexts contextualize it with something that happens in a completely different place, and therefore be like, that's why it relates to that, and that's why I'm going to treat it that way, and that's why I can go and say, and I'm sure there's so many layers between what I'm saying, but why he'll be able to pull out a name of someone that happened to be there that's not mentioned in the pshat,
or even explain a pshat based on I know what the situation is, I know where we're going with this because of, or I've seen a pattern like this in a different piece. And to your point, by the way, it's interesting because Chumash, the 5 books of Moses and then the prophets, have different rhythms.
Okay.
And Rashi treats them differently because of that. Because he noticed, because everyone knows. Everyone knows the Chumash is different. This is what Moses got from God, and this is what the prophets got later. It's very different.
Yeah.
He'll treat the rhythm as different. The way Rashi translates, the way he explains is different.
Do we learn halacha also from the rest of Nach, and not or is all of halacha derived strictly from the Torah, and then maybe sharpened later in the Tanakh?
That's a good question. We have what's called asmachta, which means it's a supporting structure from Nevi'im, from the prophets. We do learn halacha from the prophets. Sometimes we learn a translation of what a word means or what a phrase means in the Torah, and then we know what that actually means.
Because of how it's written in prophets?
Because we'll know a translation or something. But there are certain halachas that we learn from Nevi'im straight.
Okay.
And the Gemara gets a little bit dicey on that. It's like, well, can you find me a verse that comes from Chumash
That backs that up.
or that just gets preference? Like if you're gonna quote it, you want to quote first the Chumash
Mm-hmm.
and then afterwards the prophets, and not vice versa, which is interesting.
It's very interesting. But like it also makes sense, which is why I imagine that feeds into like it maybe a chicken and the egg of why Moshe is considered the greatest prophet, the person who had the open dialogue.
That's the piece.
And the people who had fragments of dialogue, whether it was in a dream, whether it was in Revelation, but like they weren't people who would be like, 1 second, I'm going to talk to someone and come back with.
We're going to see that. We're actually
answers.
going to see this in one of the interesting things that I really love about Bahalotcha, which is section 3 of BaMidbar of Numbers,
Mm-hmm.
is that there's a lot of super crazy stories that are very, very fundamental to the way we look at a lot of theological questions.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there. It's very interesting. Just to clarify what a parsha actually is, it's the Torah is split up into 53 chapters, or sections, I should say. The chapters were invented much later by some monk who decided he wanted to make chapters. Yeah,
Okay.
if you actually look, interestingly,
Like not a Jew.
No. If you look in the Chumash, if you look in you take a classical Chumash and you open it up and you look to see when the chapters, how they're split up, you will notice that there are some Torah portions that start with verse 2 or 3 of a chapter.
Interesting.
Because the monk decided he broke it up according to what he thinks the themes are.
And obviously.
And he's off by a verse or two because sometimes the Torah wants to end on a certain note.
Very interesting.
Before it starts. And the easiest example of this is the end of Bereshit, the end of Noach, going into the first 3 parshiot of the Torah, where essentially it's the last piece. I think in 2 of them is the hero moves on to the next chapter when we don't.
I see.
Yeah. Torah is broken into 53 sections. Of the 53 sections, we try to read them on the 53 weeks of the year.
Mm-hmm.
There are some complications. Not every Jewish year has 53 weeks, because not every year it's a lunar year, not a solar year,
And not every year has 12 months.
and not every year something have 13 months.
Yeah.
So the challenge essentially is and also holidays. You don't read the weekly Torah portion.
So are there some parshas that in a certain year we'll just skip altogether?
We'll double it up.
So they'll be grouped
Joined,
with something
conjoined.
else. Yeah.
Yeah, and in a leap year, you have very few conjoined parshas, almost none.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, if Shavuot is going to be on a Saturday, like it is this year,
Mm-hmm.
it means we lose a week of the weekly Torah portion.
So it gets
It gets
joined
moved
with
forward a
something
week.
else.
So it gets moved forward a week.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, now, this year, in Vayikra, there's 3 options of conjoining 2 parshas together.
Mm-hmm.
Which every time you conjoin a parsha, you save a week. So, I know for sure 2 of them are conjoined. I believe the 3rd one's also conjoined. I think they just conjoin all of them. And there's a system for this. It's not like, they're not making it up on the fly. It's like, oh, what should we do this year? There's a system. There's 19 different kinds of years. And that's actually a generalization, but there's probably a little less than that. And basically, depending on the year, that's how many parts are going to be conjoined. But there are Gan Sdarim. There's 53. Gan is garden.
Mm-hmm.
It's the garden of Torah. There's 53 numerical value of the Torah portions.
In Gematria.
In Gematria,
Okay.
yeah. Gematria is 50. Nun is 50. Gimel is 3.
Mm-hmm.
53. Gan, the garden of Torah. Easy way to remember. And that is how we have a thing called the Torah portion. So this week's Torah portion, or any week's Torah portion, is the section that universally all Jews study.
Mm-hmm.
On that week, we start and we end with Simchat Torah, which is the end of the high holiday season. It also means we start in fall. It matches the school year very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
It also means that because the school year sometimes starts before the high holiday season, students in school will know the end of the 5th book of the Torah
Before they know the first one.
before they know the first. Well, they also won't know the 4th. The 4th is the one that's ignored. That's what I'm saying. The 4th
Okay.
is mostly ignored, especially the second half of the 4th, which is half the crazy stories are all there,
Mm.
and it's mostly missed. So this is I think this is great that we're starting here,
Amazing.
because this is a very the Rabbi had a term that it was a mess mitzvah. A mess mitzvah is when you have a piece of the Torah that nobody really studies, so it's kind of
and you give it love.
It's dead and abandoned on the road. So you give it a little extra love. It's nice.
I have a question before we hop in.
Sure.
Do you know of any other religions where if you stop any practicing or religious member of that religion on the road and say, what are you reading this week? That every single Jew in the world will say, well, this week we're doing BaMidbar, or this week we're doing V'zot Baracha. And to take it one step further, you even have like Daf Yomi, which means that anywhere, if a Jew is serious about studying Talmud, or Mishnah, is it Mishnah or Talmud? So Talmud, he could show up anywhere in the world and walk into a Daf Yomi class and he'll be caught up. Yeah,
so you actually have, there's 4 cycles, I would say, that are like that. Elal does the question where they ask you when Elal does security questions.
Okay.
If you are presenting as religious, they will ask you what's the Torah portion.
Really?
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes, it's one of their things
to see if you're on your stuff.
To see if you know if you're actually legitimately religious.
If you're who you say you are.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. If you look religious, you act religious, they're going to be like, what's the Torah portion? Can you share with me? I've heard can you share with me a Dvar Torah?
That's awesome.
On the Torah portion, which is funny because I don't know if I'm in the airport. I'm not thinking Dvar Torah, but you have to be ready just in case. What if Elal's asking you, give me a vart?
Elal doesn't know it, but they're encouraging people to be on top of their stuff.
So good.
So good. That's brilliant.
But yes, you have Torah, you have Rambam, Maimonides, which is a there's a yearly cycle of that.
I didn't know that. Okay.
3 chapters a day.
What's that called?
It's called Rambam.
Okay.
It's the Yad HaChazakah. It's the Book of Laws. That's it's fairly new. It started in 1984. The Rabbi started it. So that anyone who's involved in that will know. They'll do it. You have Daf Yomi, which is more popular these days. It started in 1930 something.
Do you know which community was responsible?
It was Polish yeshiva.
Okay.
It didn't become popular until later when people realized they wanted to have some big project that are learning.
It's very big in Israel.
It's big
in the Dati Leumi community. I know for sure.
That's more recent.
Much
more recent. They got into it, and they also got into Rambam also.
Yeah, very much.
In the last couple of years as well. It's everyone's.
If you think about it, the Rambam, I feel like it was a matter of time before the Dati Leumi crowd were like, he's one of us.
Yeah. He reads like
a doctor.
Yeah. He fits the thing.
Yeah.
Sultan's doctor.
So we have 3. There's Torah, Rambam, Daf Yomi, and
then you have Chabad has Chabad. Anyone that's into Chassidus will do a yearly cycle of Tanya.
Okay.
Which is the classical Chassidic teaching, and now we're in the middle of. Well, if I say where we are, we're going to date the podcast. We're not going to say where. But it goes through the entire all the 5 sections of the Tanya. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And it's very powerful because it works through. We'll talk about the time when we get there. We'll have time, but that's another one. That's more Chabad will know about that one. So Chabad knows that, and then you have Rambam, Torah portion, Daf Yomi. But Daf Yomi, for example, I don't even know what page it's on.
Yeah,
because I don't do it.
You're not in the cycle.
I'm not in the cycle
yet.
Well, we'll see.
Could happen.
Everything can happen.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's exactly what we're
exactly where we are.
All right, perfect. You want to hop in?
Yeah, let's go. Okay, so what are we talking about? We're doing now BaMidbar, which is the 4th book of the Torah. Where are we? Let's do context setting. Like, what is going on? Where are we? The Jewish people are currently encamped at the bottom of Mount Sinai.
Still at the beginning. So for a book and a half, they're at the bottom of Mount Sinai.
For the entirety of Leviticus, the entirety of Vayikra, and half of Exodus, they have been at the bottom of Mount Sinai.
Okay.
Ever since they arrived to get the Torah. So let's do a little more context. Jews go into exile. Moses comes, redeems them. That story we don't have.
Jews go into exile, and I'm just going to contextualize that maybe even a little bit more. Is the 12 brothers, sons of Jacob, that go to Egypt because of the famine in Canaan. They get there. Joseph dies. The Pharaoh who knew Joseph dies. They get enslaved and spend a few generations enslaved in Egypt.
210 years, to be precise.
210 years, where in some families that's exactly 1 generation, in some families that's exactly 4 generations, right?
No, for the most part, everyone's still everyone. The oldest generation passes on.
Okay.
All the sons of Yaakov pass. A lot of their children pass.
I think there are a couple grandchildren of Jacob.
Yeah.
Like according to Midrash and like I might be stepping way out of like but what we're talking about. But yeah, like there are a couple like people who like live to be very like old.
Well, how old was Moses when he took them out of Egypt?
80.
Correct.
80.
Which is not common knowledge. It's not. This is actually one of those things that I think is becoming more and more obvious, more and more well known.
Mm-hmm.
He was 80 years old, so it's pretty old. But it also means he was born 80 years prior, which means take 210, minus 80.
Yeah.
We're talking about the gap between his birth.
Yeah, you're talking about a
and
lifespan already.
It's not so far.
Yeah.
Right. So Jews go into exile. Moshe comes and redeems them. God sends them. Moshe redeems them. Takes them out of Egypt. Everyone knows this piece. The 10 plagues, the splitting of the sea. Gorgeous. Then they go into the desert.
Mm-hmm.
They arrive at Mount Sinai 7 weeks after leaving Egypt.
Relatively quickly.
6 weeks after they split the sea.
Mm-hmm.
Not that long.
Okay.
Once they arrive at Mount Sinai, they're there for a week. So they actually even arrive at Mount Sinai 5 weeks after the splitting of the sea because they're there for a week before they get the Torah.
Okay.
It's a very quick process.
Well, at that point, they hadn't messed up that badly yet.
So they sit at the bottom of Mount Sinai. So this is interesting. They sit at the bottom of Mount Sinai for almost 2 years.
Okay.
And then 2 years. Might I have this number right? I want to say it's 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's 2 year. And then they arrive. They're there, and this is where BaMidbar picks up.
Mm-hmm.
This is where Numbers begins to continue telling the story.
So we're talking.
We haven't messed up yet. The 40 years in the desert. Chet HaEgel does not lead to the 40 years.
So what leads to the 40 years?
It's going to be. It's coming up. It's coming up.
The spies?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, which means
that also Har Sinai is closer to Israel than we thought.
Yeah, we'll see. As we go through it. No, as we go through it, Hashem gives them God gives them he shrinks a 7-day journey into 3,
mm-hmm.
which leads them to complain. Because why?
Why would they complain if their journey's too short?
Why not?
Just because they're complaining. They're kvetchy people.
They were cranky.
Yeah,
they were hangry.
They're hangry.
It was, and it's actually that portion of the Torah goes through multiple pieces, where they're complaining one after another. So the spies really is in the context of like they've been really, really pissy for a while,
mm-hmm.
and now Hashem is eventually like, "I'm sorry."
Okay.
So you be careful what you ask for.
I see.
So then he decrees the staying in the desert. Then they stay in the desert, and they just hang out in the desert. They don't go anywhere.
Not wandering.
They move. They're there for 40 years. For one of the stops along the way, they're there for 19 years in one spot.
In one spot,
which means they have kids. The kids grow up. They turn 18,
mm-hmm.
and then like a year later, they're like, "We're moving." And they're like, "What is this moving business?" Like, "Oh, you've never seen it. This is what it looks like." Yeah, back in the day, we used to travel all the time. This is how it looks.
That's hilarious. Okay. That makes more sense.
So now this is where we are. So essentially, we're going to now get into we haven't done a full inauguration of the temple yet.
Mm-hmm.
There's pieces coming with the full
At this point, we already hear about it, though, right?
Technically, it was already inaugurated in the middle of Leviticus, in the middle of Vayikra.
Okay.
But there's pieces of that inauguration that haven't been recounted yet.
Okay. And that happens in this parsha? And we're going to
talk about that in the second parsha.
Second parsha.
So I'm saying we're in the desert. We're sitting in the desert. We're having a good time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Then we're gonna have some excitement. Then we're gonna end up messing up and getting stuck in the desert for 40 years.
Getting a little slap on the hand.
And then we basically, from the decree, interestingly enough, just to give like a little jump here, BaMidbar, we start off at the base of Mount Sinai. 6 parshiot in,
mm-hmm.
we're after 40 years already.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a jump scare. There's nothing happens.
And does it say that? Like,
no.
is it very clearly indicated, or God forbid?
It's a jump scare.
Okay.
But I think it's a jump scare. It's a word.
Okay.
Where it just bounces from boom, boom.
But like, is it noted that it's bounced? It's like, and in the year of being in the desert.
I have to look at that. I don't remember.
Okay. Because that'd be interesting. Because like, it wouldn't be beyond.
It's in Chukat. If you want the
Okay,
exact.
it wouldn't be beyond our beautiful book to
for sure.
to be encrypted.
It makes
in
it
that way.
clear that they're heading towards Israel,
Mm-hmm.
and then it makes it clear that like the way it tells the story is the way it tells the story is it tells the Jews to start traveling to Israel because they are. Look at the text right here. Yeah, it doesn't say anything.
Nothing.
No.
It's just like
It
So-
starts
so-
off.
so-
It starts the parsha off with a bunch of laws about the red heifer, which we'll get into when we get there, and then it says they arrive in the desert of Sin, near Kadesh, which we know is the border of Israel, and then Miriam dies. And we know from the context of how things are going to roll that the death of Miriam and the death of Aaron happen back to back, and they happen as they're about to go into the land of Israel.
so, which is an interesting that none of those three siblings enter the land
No.
of Israel.
No,
And
and
Miriam's
they were also
husband
pretty
does.
old.
Hmm?
They're also pretty old.
Well, she's older than they're both older than Moshe,
Correct.
and they outlive him.
They die right before him. But yeah, the age wise, yes. Miriam passed away at 126. Aaron is 123. Moshe is 120.
Net.
To the day.
Yeah.
Nailed it. He was holding on. He's like, give me one more day. But yeah, and then from there it just talks about how they want to go into Israel, and then Moshe's talking to. It doesn't say anywhere, and 40 years passed. Unless it says somewhere that I don't know. Which case you can send your messages to. Let us know if we make mistakes on this thing. It's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Feel free to email us at.
We're not going to tell you where. Okay, so let's. So this is where we are. We're at the very edge of we're at Mount Sinai. We're at the bottom of Mount Sinai, in the
What page am I
Chumash. If you're using the Gutnick Chumash, which is a very beautiful one, we're on page 849, or 848. If you're using any Chumash you want to follow along, kind of, because we're not really going along with the Torah portion. We're just going to be around the Torah portion. It is
849.
848, 849. Yeah. It's
BaMidbar.
it's Parashat BaMidbar. It's Numbers 1:1. That's where we're starting, and this Torah portion goes until the end of the Torah portion. Okay, so what's interesting is a few things. First of all, just the overarching, like what is going on in the Torah portion. Yeah, this Torah portion does two major things. Number one is it counts how many Jews exist.
Okay. That's
Okay.
the first. This is in Parshat.
That's why it's
BaMidbar.
called Numbers,
Ah, okay.
because it just starts off with a bunch of numbers.
And what do they call it in Hebrew?
Well, depends. Bamidbar means in the desert,
No, but yeah. So
and then if you go to the Talmudic way of academic way of calling it,
limnot, right?
Sefer Hapkudim,
Hapkudim.
which is numbers.
Yeah.
It matches the theme and the theme. So it's interesting that numbers is the theme, which is an interesting concept. We'll have to think about that. We'll
We'll get back.
get
to it.
back to it in a second. I just want to give. Okay, so you have the numbers. There's a census. The census is done by people, by everyone. We're counting all the people, and at the same time, we're also counting everyone based on their families and their tribes.
And is this the counting that they give? Each person gives a chetzi shekel, a half a shekel. Is that or am I off on this one?
No, there is a chatzi shekel. No, they do it this way. Yeah, they count the chatzi shekel because they're not allowed to count people directly. Yeah. And this becomes, by the way, one of the ways that they count the Jews in the future. There is this idea that well, first of all, there's a general idea you don't count Jews. You don't count people. You don't count people that you want a blessing to be on them. Anything that is counted is bounded.
Okay.
And if it's bounded, then it becomes finite. It says that before you go to count your granary to figure out how much profit you made from this year's harvest, you're supposed to ask Hashem for extra blessing, because until you open that door, it's Schrodinger's granary. It hasn't collapsed.
Could be
into
more.
a
It
real
could be
number.
less.
Yeah. In fact, there's a story in the Gemara that talks about this exact idea, and there was one person who his wife and daughter, I think, go to count the grain for a specific reason, and he's upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because he says basically until now, we can just keep withdrawing from the account, and we'll never know if we did something. You know, if we don't know if we overspent, because it could be just a bottomless hole.
Yeah.
The minute you count it, now you know how much there is.
You've defined it.
You've defined it.
Right. Okay.
So you don't count things directly. In fact, you love the prophets. There is a time when King David counts the Jewish people, and it causes a plague. He doesn't know what to do. Why? And then Yoav,
and it's still not considered a chet.
It's on the list of things like that King David is known for having made a mistake in.
Mm-hmm.
Yoav tries to tell him not to,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "Do it anyways." And he does it, and there's a plague. And he's like, "Why?" It's because you counted them directly. So the way we do it is, if you're with a group of people, you want to count them. The cutesy way of doing it is not 1, not 2, not 3, which is to emphasize we're not counting.
Yeah,
we're trying to gather.
Definitely not counting.
There's other ways to do it as well.
The Hoshea et Amecha. There's only so many. You want me to fix that real quick?
I don't know.
I can do it.
Yeah. Oh wait, I think I have it. I figured it out.
You figured it out? More sturdy?
Yeah. There you go.
Do a little. Yep, you're good.
I did. Okay, good. So this counting of numbers, counting of people, that goes for a while. Then you have the Levim, what their job is, and then comes a very fascinating piece. Again, this is, I love it because it is how the Jews encamp in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
What does it mean? It's how. What we're talking about now is it talks about how they're going to be camping?
Correct. They're going to camp in a very specific shape, meaning their physical campgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a massive rectangle. Inside the rectangle, each tribe has their specific area.
Mm-hmm.
3 tribes in each side. It's encamped around the tabernacle, around the Mishkan. It's at the center. Surrounding the Mishkan is a I guess not a circle, but like a square, a rectangle essentially, with the Levite tribe, the Levium, different families on each side of the camp of the Mishkan, and then a third ring, which is the camp of the regular Jews, and that is each tribe gets their specific area. 3 tribes to the north, 3 tribes to the south, 3 tribes to the east, 3 tribes to the west.
Okay.
And each of those tribes, Kabbalistically, those are corresponding to. There's a verse, I believe it's in Yeshaya and Isaiah, where it speaks about the different sides of God's throne, different angels that are on different sides of God's throne. These 4 camps represent those 4 angels, the 4 sides of the Merkava. There's a lot of Kabbalistic connotations here as well. Each in the Midrash, when it gets into it, talks about why certain tribes are put on certain sides. It's because the north is more dangerous. There's like negative energy comes from the north. The south has its own energies. East has its energies. Each energy is corresponding specifically to the tribes that are on those sides, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
It also means that there was organized. It wasn't just chaos. It was like, this is where if you Google it, you look, 12 tribes encampments. There's these big beautiful diagrams and AI renderings these days. Gorgeous stuff. It's really interesting.
Is that something we can get into?
We could, but what's interesting, what I wanted to emphasize even more, I think is more interesting, is the flags. Every tribe had a flag. And
they describe them here.
It's not described in the Chumash. It's described just as each one has their flag. The orator, the Medrash, has a very detailed discussion.
And is that where we understand that the semel or the flag for Benjamin is a wolf and the flag for Judah is a lion?
Yes.
And all of those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the colors of each flag.
Okay. I didn't know there were colors too.
There are colors. Shimon, God had a fortified city. I believe it was black. Dun had a serpent on it, a snake. So we're talking about like real visceral flags. Gorgeous. The Levi flag had the Urim V'Tumim, the breastplate on it. I believe it was a multicolor. And there's even in the Midrash itself, there's different opinions. Something says like multicolor. So one opinion says it was just multicolor. One opinion says it was actually 3 colors. It was black, red, and white in striped form as a background to
the Urim and Tumim.
To the Urim and Tumim. And there's a discussion if their name was also embroidered on as well. So it was
like that's how deep into it. Like
Yeah. That's how deep the Medrash gets into it. And also, if you're imagining this in your mind's eye of how it looked, we're talking about a very colorful experience. It wasn't like, because you think Jews in the desert, it's like, how many were there? You think like, 150 Jews sitting around the campfire. Like, what did it look like, right? It was a full-blown society.
How many people are we talking?
600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60. They counted fighting men.
Okay.
That's the official number. That doesn't include the Levim.
And it doesn't include women and children.
Doesn't include women and children.
Or
doesn't include elders. Correct.
So we're talking well above 1 million.
It's at least 1.2 because men and women, let's just say it's 50-50.
Yeah.
So then add in children, add in adults over. You can make that number 3 million. You can make the number 5 million. It's pretty big. Big.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's, yeah. The first thing that comes to mind talking about a number like that is how big we would have been if our growth wasn't interrupted once every 50 years since.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Look, even now, our numbers are not there yet from the Holocaust.
They're not above what they were when the Holocaust started, correct? That's scary.
Which is fascinating. It's fascinating for a variety of reasons. I think the officially, according to demographers, whatever the people are called that make demographics,
those ones,
those peoples, officially they have, they say that the Jews before the Holocaust were the largest. It was the largest size the community ever was.
Really?
Yeah.
Which is also scary considering
it's not a lot.
It's
It says like 16 million.
Yeah.
And today we're like 15 something.
That's sour.
It's sad.
It's
sad. Very sad. Okay. Good. Okay, so we have them camped around. I want to keep us half focused here.
Okay.
We count the Levites. We make them. We put them in charge of stuff. It's good stuff. We count the firstborn. This is good. This is good. One of the things that we do in this portion, this Torah portion, there's two pieces I think that I'm going to point out that are interesting that no one really knows about. When I say no one, it means like I think that nobody knows about it, but I could be wrong. First of all, this is the Torah portion which talks about Pidyon Haben, redeeming the firstborn sons. And this is a place that puts down the number. That is 5 silver coins, what you use to redeem the firstborn son. It's explicitly stated in the Chumash, which is fascinating. There's a lot of things. So what is the mitzvah?
In Pidyon Ben is if you were to get married and your first child is a boy, you actually have to buy him from the Kohanim, correct? Redeem him.
Yeah. Swap him.
And the cost of that is 5 shekels. Shekel is a weight unit in silver. So what you're doing is 5 shekels in silver.
Correct. It's about $100 today, by the way.
It's about 100. That's not a little.
It's not a lot.
It's also not a little.
Well, silver goes up.
Yeah.
So it could be a little more, but yeah.
So, okay.
101.
Is it weird that we have a defined amount like that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's interesting that it is explicated in the Torah. There's a lot of things. A lot of times when you read the Torah, you're like, it'll say things kind of ambiguously. It'll be like, or at least we think it does that, because all the big themes in Judaism that we quote directly from the book, we're quoting things that are slightly, I don't want to say ambiguous, but sound very, very grand and vague, like the Shema.
Like the Shema Tefillin.
So Tefillin, it says
tzitzit.
Put on, even tzitzit, yeah. It says have fringes. Go figure that out.
Yeah.
Right? It says Hashem is one. And everyone's like, oh, it feels so good. God is one. But like, what does it mean practically? So there's other places in the Chumash where it says very clearly what that means.
Yeah.
And like, what you are not allowed to do. But when you generically quote the Torah, again, out there in the kind of the open, the public mind space of what you quote, you're usually quoting the 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments are very, very clean and explicit, but half of them you're like, I don't know what they mean. Thou shalt not covet, which is like a word that most people don't think about. And then the other ones, you're like, don't murder, obviously.
Yeah.
So it becomes almost like slightly impractical versus when you have something like, it's 5 shekel. That's the number. It's not redeemed for silver. We'll leave it to the oral Torah when. I think it's cool.
Okay.
I think it's cool. It says here, looking for the exact. Take 5 shkalim for each head that you have to redeem. Chamisha. It's beautiful. Sorry, chameshet to be precise. Okay, so that's one interesting thing I wanted to point out. The other thing that's interesting is the last section, or almost the last section. No, the last section of the Torah portion covers. Well, it covers the covers.
The covers meaning
when the Jewish people traveled. So this requires a little bit of explanation. The temple, the Mishkan, the tabernacle was a building, a temporary type of building. Everything in the desert was made to be movable.
Mm-hmm.
People had their tents. It was movable, obviously. When they built the first synagogue, tabernacle. What's a tabernacle?
So
it's like phylacteries. What's that?
That's a good point. So I remember when I was in middle school and we studied the details of the tabernacle. I don't think looking back, because I have a very visual memory. They would show us pictures, but even while they were describing it, it's like your walls break down into blocks, and each block has a hole so that you can put a pole through it, so that you can carry it easier. In the that's very interesting.
What is the goal of this thing? This building? A place that you serve God.
Worship.
A place that you worship, and this is something it's a much bigger conversation. What exactly is it? It's essentially a place you worship God.
Mm-hmm.
It also happens to be the place that God spoke to Moses, and is basically the center focal point of the Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
The 10 Commandments are stored in the Holy of Holies. The holiest space in the tabernacle is the Ark. And what's in the Ark? The 10 Commandments.
Both.
2 stones.
Well, is it true that both of them were stored in there?
I'm saying the broken tablets as well.
Yeah.
So there's a discussion as to whether both tablets are in the same ark,
mm-hmm.
or if there's a secondary ark which was kept separately, which had the broken one inside. That's mostly how we think of it.
Yeah, we think that there's a separate
place where they're kept. And that was actually the ark that they used for they had other purposes for that ark. It was used for other things.
I might be getting ahead, and tell me if I'm just completely off topic. Is that possibly the ark that would be brought in front of for a sacrifice before war?
Yeah.
That's the Aron.
Not as a sacrifice. We just it went in front of us. So it was the first thing that went into war.
The broken
tablets. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's fascinating.
Very interesting.
And it's going to show up later. We'll see it soon.
Okay.
So what's interesting is the tabernacle was made to be taken apart. That's important. Mm-hmm. And what's important about the tabernacle being taken apart is that they start thinking about, okay, so how did they move everything? Because there's different things that have to be moved. And really each clan of the Levite tribe moves a different piece. There's the covers and the curtains and all the soft pieces. So that was the one group of the Levium. Was Gershon, Kahas, and Merari. Kahas is Moses' family, and they were designated to be the ones to carry
mm-hmm.
the actual vessels so the ark was
mm-hmm.
carried on the shoulders. It wasn't put onto wagons. It wasn't put on, oxen couldn't carry it. It was literally carried. It wasn't so many
mm-hmm.
items. There's
Mizbech Hazav, the golden
incense altar. The golden incense altar.
The menorah. You have the ark. Or both arks.
Yeah.
In that.
Well, this is the ark.
Okay.
The one that we have. Yeah.
The ark. I used to know this. There are 7 artifacts in the
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6. We have not the copper.
The copper one.
But that's big.
It was smaller and it was hollow.
Okay.
And they would fill it up with dirt every time they arrived on location.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm surprised at the fact that I remember how big it is.
Yeah.
Because there's a walk. It's a walk up.
Yeah.
Altar.
It was short. It was a little bit shorter.
Okay.
The one in the temple, in the Mishkan.
So they built a different one for the temple.
Once they got to Israel, things changed.
Okay.
Then we'll get to that. That's a topic to cover.
So you have both.
You're missing one thing. You're only missing one thing.
What am I missing? Shulchan.
The table that had the breads, the showbread.
Okay. I forgot about that one completely.
Yeah. So the shulchan, the menorah, the incense altar, the outside altar, and the ark. Each one was carried by the
Kehatim.
By the Kahat, yes, the Kahatim.
Mm-hmm.
And So everyone, the ark had poles that had to stay inside of it at all times.
Mm-hmm.
All the others, they had poles that were
Modular
removed.
poles, yeah.
No, they were removed and they were put in specifically for carrying. When God describes the shape of the altar and everything that they're going to build, he tells them where to put the rings, that you're going to put the rods that you're going to use to carry.
Yeah, I just realized something that someone listening to this might not know. Levi has 3 kids, Kehat, Gershon, and Merari.
Yes.
Kehat being Moshe's grandfather. Direct grandfather. Gershon being his grandfather's brother, Merari being his grandfather's younger brother, right? Gershon being the oldest. So that's what the 3 families in Levi are. And that also means that all the Kohanim, because all the Kohanim are descendants of Aaron, right? So those are all also from Kehat.
Yes.
So what are Gershon and Merari doing in terms of their obligations to the Jewish people?
So the Gershon is carrying, I have to look exactly to make sure I'm not messing it up.
The walls.
Gershon is carrying the walls, I believe, and Merari is carrying, well, I want to make sure that I'm doing this correctly. Just give me a second. Dun, 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 dun. Gershon is carrying the soft. They're carrying all the tapestries and all the curtains and all the covers of the Mishkan.
Mm-hmm.
And Merari is carrying the
walls.
the walls and the poles. And they didn't carry it alone. They had wagons.
Okay.
They had oxen.
So the only ones that were were shoulder carrying are the Kehat
Are the
family.
Kehat family, exactly.
Because those are the
Holy
holy
of holies. You don't put it on animals.
Okay. Wow.
It's interesting, this idea that that Chassidim, when they would travel, and we're bouncing a little bit here because we just left the desert and moved straight to Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
But Chassidim...
and about 2,000 years.
Yeah, 2,000 years of life. Chassidim that would travel to visit their Rebbe, there was a concept in the Chassidic world to walk and not to take a ride with an animal.
I've heard
on
this.
On the back of a wagon or on a horse. And to the point that there were some Chassidim that refused to go by wagon, and when they got older, they just visited less often.
Okay.
Instead of going by cart, which is interesting because some Chassidim just gave in and said, "I need to visit once a year at minimum."
Yeah.
So I'm gonna now I can't walk, I'll get a ride.
Yeah.
And some Chassidim said, "I'm gonna save up my energy, I'll prepare myself, and
I'll go once every 4 years.
I'll go once every 2 years, once every 3 years, exactly." And they asked one of the Chassidim, "Why will you not just get a ride?" He says, "I don't want when I come to heaven and they're gonna ask me about the things that I did good in my life. One of my big things that I went to visit the Rebbe."
Very nice.
The journey for me is very, very powerful. It's very spiritual. I do not want to be arguing. I do not want to be arguing with a horse over who gets the merit on this.
That not only aside from that being brilliant and hilarious, it does make perfect sense. I understand in my personal life, if there are certain things that I can do and feel the scrapes on the bottom of my feet when I get to the finish line, it's very rewarding. Yeah. And it feels good. And it feels like I really worked for it.
No, running a marathon. It's not the goal. The goal is not to get to the end of the finish line. Because it's not that you want to cover the distance. Yeah. It's that you want to do the distance. You want to actually you want to make there. It. Yeah.
That's awesome.
You kishket.
So that's what going back to the Levis. But when we started talking about this, and you had mentioned, by the way, that the Levis are closer to the Mishkan, and they have all these, what we would see naturally as, they're allowed to do certain things. They have permitments. Hear it, it's finally,
their responsibilities. Yeah, for sure.
They're working hard. I wonder if there was, envy between the other tribes and Levi.
No, I don't think so. And the reason why, I'll tell you.
Tough life.
The Levis. There was another tribe that also had a similar responsibility, the tribe of Yisachar. Or generally speaking,
they had it with another tribe, right?
No, so Yisachar and Zvulun had a thing.
Yeah, where one did the Torah studying and one did the fighting.
Oh, very good. So Yisachar was the tribe that studied a lot of Torah. They were super into Torah study. Most of the scholars of the high court and all the academics came. A lot of them, not all of them, came from Yisachar. An overarching or overrepresented amount. Zvulun was a merchant tribe. Yisachar Zvulun, in common Jewish parlance today, is a partnership between Yisachar, someone who's studying, and Zvulun, a business person, is making money, and they're sharing the proceeds of their. They're giving. It's more than tzedakah. They're supporting this person.
Yeah.
50-50, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then they get the merit 50-50 of the
Torah study.
of the education of Torah study. Levi is the other. So you could say that was like almost like the rabbi tribe, kind of. Levi actually was very similar to the rabbi tribe. The idea of today that we have rabbis that have like this job where they're teaching and they're learning, it comes from the idea of the Levis.
Mm-hmm.
The job of the Levi was to serve in the temple, not like the priests, but they would be singers. They did a lot of the admin work.
Mm-hmm.
They did a lot of teaching. And they would travel around. They had these different cities spread out throughout the entire land of Israel. This is after they got into Israel later on. They were living in these cities.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting about the Levi tribe is they were not allowed to own land.
They're not allowed.
Correct. They didn't have, or put it this way, they didn't have an inheritance.
Okay.
Which, as we go through more of Torah, we'll see that means that they don't really have an actual concrete piece of land that they can always go back to.
And just to see if I'm if I'm understanding this correctly, Nov, Shiloh, those are Levite cities.
Nov was a
Kohen
city because it was based around where the temple was. It was like
the temple
Jerusalem.
was in Shiloh.
Not at that time. At the time
Mishkan Shiloh.
When it was a Nov, it was a Nov.
I thought okay. It turns
At
out
the
I had
time,
this wrong.
Unless it could be I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that when it was a Nov, it was a Nov.
Okay.
That's why they were all in Nov, and that's why King David goes to Nov to go for a prayer before he runs.
I'm gonna look into this for the next episode because, I could look it up now, but there's a archaeological site in Israel called Mishkan Shiloh.
There was Mishkan Shiloh. The Mishkan, when they went into Israel, it moved around to 4 different places.
Okay.
Shiloh is one of them.
What are the other two?
Nov, Givon. Shiloh, and I'm blanking on the fourth. I think it was Nov. I think it was Shiloh twice, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Just it was once, and they moved back.
Yeah. So I imagine the other tribes having to bring maaser, so they're going to
exactly. They were forced to support them.
Yeah.
With 10%.
I imagine that comes with a little resentment.
No, other way around. And not only it's a 10%. Basically, what it is God creates a system.
Mm-hmm.
He says all of you are busy sitting and plowing your fields and building, agricultural homesteads and doing your own thing. Settling the world, settling the land. And I have this tribe of Levi that their job is to study Torah and to educate and to teach. Mm-hmm. And the way that they're going to be able to survive is you're going to take care of them. I'm going to build in a 10% requirement. It may not be enough. And in fact, one of the things that the Torah constantly does when it talks about celebrating holidays, like Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, all the big Jewish holidays, it says you should be inviting to your tables the widows, the orphans, the converts, people who don't have family, don't have means, and the Levites.
Wow.
Why the Levites? I thought they're people. They have lives, but they don't have.
Yeah.
It is a known thing that they're going to be within the communities. Mm-hmm. They're not going to have the same level of wealth because they're tribal. And there were some Leviim that were very wealthy. And in fact, we find it in the prophets. There's stories of the Leviim that had homesteads and whatever. But logistically, the way that the Jewish agricultural system worked is things reset after 50 years. People's lands went back. So we're cramming a lot of information, but people's lands went back to their original inherited owners. Mm-hmm. So a Levi could build out an agricultural kingdom essentially for a maximum of 50 years, and then after 50 years, if he wanted to have all of that, he had to have the liquid resources to be able to go back to those people who just got their land back and rebuy it.
Okay.
It's the equivalent of a European ground lease.
Okay.
Where it's a certain amount of years and then it cuts out and there's no recourse. The only recourse you have is to go and say, hey, I want to buy it again. Every other tribe had their pieces of land that belonged to them. And each household within that tribe, and it niched all the way down to the specific person.
Yeah.
None of the Levium got that. They got houses and cities. Urbanized spaces with some gardens, but it wasn't like they had
where it would just be
fields.
Easy for them to exist and do their duty.
Do your duty. They would go to the temple. Yeah. At least They had twice a year. They had a shift in the temple, besides for the 3 major holidays,
Where they all were.
where everyone went in,
Mm-hmm.
and they were out teaching.
Wow.
So it came with a lot of responsibilities. That's my point is essentially, and this is this section of the Torah also deals with that question of responsibility,
Okay.
what the responsibilities are and how they do it and what ages, etc. Okay. What we didn't cover the covers is that this is the last piece of this Torah portion, which is fascinating, is a whole section that talks about what you cover, how they were covered, I should say, for each of the different vessels.
Okay.
They were covered with basically like drop cloths almost.
Okay.
A special turquoise wool cloth that was form fitting, that was beautifully perfect, that the Levium would never touch the vessels. Because if they touched the vessels, it would be life threatening, spiritually.
Okay.
So it was covered in a very closely fitting, like a slipcase almost.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, they would put it into tachash skin, which was a rare type of animal that they use the leather of that to make these massive bags.
To any Israeli that's listening to this right now, tachash means a Tahoe dog.
Really?
Yeah, wiener dogs.
Really?
Yeah.
Ew.
That's what in Israeli when you say tachash, they're thinking of a wiener dog.
Ew.
I don't think they were made of that.
No. Tachash is a animal that we don't know what it is.
Okay.
The Medrash has an argument as to 2 questions. Number 1, did it exist miraculously or did it exist over time? Well, number 2, was it kosher, was it not kosher?
Okay.
We do know it had 1 horn.
One horn. Unicorns.
So in my opinion, 2 things. Number 1, it says the skin is multicolored. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's multicolored can mean black, red, and white, and that's considered multicolor in the eyes of the Medrash. Good. Very nice. Or, in my opinion, it's multicolored at the bottom of the CD. Where it like reflects and you look at
chrome.
it. Like that white chrome type of color.
Yeah.
Which is what modern imagery of unicorns is.
Sounds like a unicorn.
Okay. And now, if a tachash is not kosher, then it's what modern
unicorn. One hoof, not 2.
Well, a horse. Horse related.
Yeah, so a horse has 1 hoof,
Correct.
not 2. And they don't swallow their cud.
And they don't?
They don't swallow their cud?
Yeah, they don't chew their cud. But if it's kosher, it's from the deer family.
Interesting.
Right?
Which changes everything.
Which just changes the way that you think of it.
But we know it had 1 horn.
Yeah.
Like the Midrash says it has 1 horn.
Yeah, 1 horn. That's like one of the signs that it was. So what's interesting is, to me, also, when people do these like pictures of unicorns, the question comes up a lot of times, like, is it kosher? Do you want a kosher? Is it a kosher animal? We have Chabad generally has a very strong policy. We only surround their children with kosher animal imagery. The Rabbi started this campaign in like 1984 about this idea of influencing your children with kosher imagery as much as possible. So we don't have teddy bears, right? We have stuffed kosher animals.
Stuffed cow,
stuffed goat, stuffed giraffe, all the kind of stuff. It's not to say like stuffed bear is bad. It's not bad. A stuffed lion is not bad.
Yeah, but
if you have it, if you're able to decide and refine what kind of influence you're going to have in your home, and right, this therefore makes so much clearer why we choose not to have movies. And we
is that also why
music.
You see a lot less chassid? I don't know. I don't think I've ever been
having
in
animals.
Yeah,
I think it's related.
I've ever been in a
it's also related to the
dog.
fact that I think people have kids.
Yeah, but I've been in enough. Like in my community, you have enough people who have a lot of kids with dogs.
When you say a lot of kids, you mean like 3 kids? You mean like 10 kids?
No, I mean like 8, 9 kids.
And they have dogs also?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Interesting.
They had dogs in the shtetl, but they were working dogs.
Like
and
guard
cats.
dogs and stuff like
guard
that.
Guard dogs, they ate, cats that ate things. It wasn't part of the family. The idea that a dog is part of the family is... I wouldn't say... I mean, nowadays you can retroactively... We look back and say, oh, they always felt part of the family. I don't know if that's how it was. You had an affinity for your animals.
Yeah.
If they worked for you. You had a horse. You loved your horse. Yeah. But it wasn't your family member. It's different. Today things have shifted a lot. Well, I'm not judging. I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah, well, it's interesting.
But what's interesting is about the tachash is that if a tachash is kosher, then the way that they draw it should be... The pictures... should be a little more
deer,
yeah, which is interesting. It changes the look a little bit.
Definitely.
And I personally like that look a lot more
than a horse.
Yeah, I mean, that's me. Who cares?
It also it's less grandiose and more mystical, I guess, a deer.
Yeah, yeah, it's It feels not mysterious. Horses are like, I don't know. To me, at least, horses are very much about like strength, physical strength.
Yeah.
And depicting like it's beauty. It is beautiful. Horses are beautiful animals.
Yeah, but deers, there's something like majestic about them. They're like the way they walk. They're
graceful,
very
graceful.
Graceful. That's the word. Okay.
Yeah.
So tachash is what the covers were made of.
So the covers were made of, and then they were put on poles, or they had a pole. They were put on a pole, whatever it was. The point is, this is a piece where the whole concept of like the logistics are never thought of, and there's also meanings for each one, like why it has its specific type of covers that it has.
Okay.
The it has a tachash. The tachash skin was meant to be kind of like an outer covering, just like a general bag. The inner one was blue to remind you of heaven, to remind you of God, and it was more form fitting, so that would actually cover every single piece of it. It was the exact one.
So there was a certain there were several layers to each cover.
It was multiple covers. There was a cover on top of a cover.
Okay, and each piece had the same two covers, or?
Well, there's a full on listing here. Each of them had at least two coverings. Some of them had they all had turquoise or a wool, I should say, a wool covering, a turquoise covering, and all of them had a tachash skin on the outside. And then there's a conversation of each one, what color it was, and why it's important. For example, as an example, the breads of the shulchan, of the show table, was put on top of the covering. It was the shulchan was wrapped separately from the breads, versus they would travel
with the bread.
They would travel with the bread. Yeah, but it was not on the actual table. It was on the table as it was covered. It was like draped, and they would put the breads back on the table where it belongs.
After the table has been covered.
After it's been covered,
with
right.
the tablecloth.
Because it's like a tablecloth, yeah.
These breads were man, or they were baked?
No, they were baked. They were matzah.
These were the only breads that were being baked in the desert, technically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Legally, at least.
Well, I mean, people could have made their own if they wanted.
But with what crops?
Not crops. They'd have to go trade.
Okay.
They traded. Once they were in the desert for a while, they were trading with their neighbors.
Okay.
They weren't isolated.
I feel like that might be something that most people wouldn't have.
You don't think of it until you see Tosfot mentions, oh yeah, and they would trade with their neighbors, and that's why X, Y, and Z are oh, interesting. So they were in the middle of a desert. They didn't really have a lot of trade routes, it seems like, but they could travel out.
Well,
they weren't that far.
It is like the land bridge between Asia and Africa. So I imagine that there were merchants
if you're going through the desert itself. Yes, it depends also probably which area.
Yeah.
As they moved around, there's parts of it where it's very narrow.
There's that big belly in the Sinai.
Correct.
Where nobody's going through that.
Correct. Also, are you going through Israel? If you're traveling that far, would you not travel through Israel and get stop on the way to get refill on food and drink? It would make more sense to go a little bit more inhabited. So yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting. So that essentially covers most of the parsha.
Want to recap?
The recap of it in general is that we're talking about the Jews in the desert being counted, the Jews in the desert establishing their camp, a very specific way that they were camped out. We give roles to the Levites, and we clarify details about those roles as well. And that's kind of covers the entire first thing. What's interesting about the fact that we start off with a count is very interesting.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of the Kabbalistic piece that I find fascinating about this whole thing. What is unique about when you count people? What is interesting, I would say. What unique? What's interesting?
When you count people?
Yeah.
My mind's going in a couple directions, especially because we're counting only the people who are eligible for battle. What can we take on? What's the load that we can take on? Or what are our needs? How many mouths do we need to feed? Those are the two things that come to mind.
And in both of them, what we're emphasizing in a big way is not the individuality of the people.
Like this is a group.
We flatten the individuality. Everyone becomes equal. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a minion. Right? Same idea.
Mm.
When you count people for a minion, there can be Moses. You can have 9 Moseses, and then one of us. Yeah, exactly. One of us walk in and we're like, "You're the 10th, Mazel tov. Thank you for showing up."
Yeah.
Right? And suddenly you have this infinite value attached to each person.
I see.
Which is very, very interesting. What was
That's beautiful.
What was the largest minion that ever existed?
Har Sinai?
Correct. If we didn't have 600,000 people, God would never have given us the Torah.
If we didn't have
600,000.
Why is that?
That's the Mendy says. There's 600,000 types of souls, men. In general, we say men and women have their when a person's married, it's the same. It's 2 halves of the same soul. Mm-hmm. So you can't count the same soul twice. Essentially.
Okay.
That's why it's 1.
Okay. Very nice.
So 600,000 souls had to be present for the Torah to be given. Had we only had 5999999, then God would have been like, "Where's our minion? I can't say Kaddish. No 10 Commandments."
Brilliant.
It's so cool. It's very cool. But what's interesting is that when we do this count, we emphasize not just that we're doing a count and we're flattening all the identities. At the same time, we're also emphasizing each tribe in their individuality.
Because they're counting household, tribe.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a paradox almost, a little bit.
Yeah, like while they're basically clumping everyone into Adat B'nai Israel, the congregation of Israel.
Correct.
They're also saying, and of that, this many are of Shevet Reuven, and this many, and of that, of this household.
Which means we're saying there's an identity that's unique to you, to you, and an identity unique to you, and it's not the same identity as everybody else. Mm. So it's it's almost 2 opposite messages, which is interesting and powerful. Because where does it come from? Everything in the Torah. This is where we begin to get into the themology, the theme of how Kabbalah works. The fact that we're going to flatten everyone to be completely similar to each other comes from somewhere. And the fact that we're going to emphasize the individuality of each person comes from somewhere. Where does it come from? Where does it come from? So the flattening comes from the infinity of God, or the simplicity of God. God is simple. God is one. God is the ultimate oneness. There's nothing to be parsed out from within the greatness of God. Mm-hmm. Which means that every person is equal. Why is every person equal? Because each person is infinite. Mm-hmm. Right? We have this question about individual human life. And we talk about in Jewish law that if, how can you balance one life against another? Obviously, we don't say kill one person to save another person's life.
We don't say that.
Never, unless the first individual is trying to kill.
Yeah.
Someone is trying to kill. It's called a rodef. It's a whole. Anyone that's ever studied anything in ethical and moral class in Jewish stuff knows this idea. Like, you can kill someone who's trying to kill somebody else. It's a rodef. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's a special exemption. Otherwise, every single person is equal. Mm-hmm. And we get into this major question when it comes to questions of organ transplants. And what if you have 2 people? One's 70 and one's 21, or one's 18.
But they're both infinite.
They're both infinite. What if you have an 18-year-old that's an alcoholic and the 7-year-old is an upstanding member of society for 70 years? Like, all these questions begin to become. And this is how moral things, ethical questions kind of get played out. Mm-hmm. But the Torah's perspective, at least, again, we're not getting into details of those specific questions, but the Torah's perspective is every person's infinite, which is why when you have, if you're part of the minyan, you're part of the minyan. If you're not part of the minyan, you're not part of the minyan. It's up or down. It's either you're in or you're out. Mm-hmm. Because there's an infinity that you can't account for details within the infinity. It's just yes or no.
Okay. But where does that meet us with organ donors?
1 second. We'll leave the organ donors for a minute. 1 second. But now the question is, Is God infinite?
I feel like I've heard someone say that the answer cannot be yes because calling something infinite is defining it.
So God is not just infinite.
He's not just infinite.
Correct.
Okay.
God is infinite and he's finite.
And he's finite, which is
finite.
what makes him actually what most people would consider infinite.
Which makes him conceptually infinite, available to be infinite.
Yeah.
And it also creates complexity. We know the complexity of this world to be incredibly complex. In fact, one of the meditations that we have, one of the spiritual meditations that we have, when we look at the world, how do we inspire ourselves to the greatness of God? Is by looking at the multitudes of his creations, standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon and noticing every single color.
Marabu Masech.
Marabu Masech Hashem, Agadlu Masech Hashem. Both of them. How many and how great. That doesn't come from a simplicity. It doesn't come from a oneness. It comes from an infinite finiteness. That you can have millions and millions of variations. That doesn't come from a simplicity. It comes from complexity.
Mm-hmm.
That manifests in the Jewish people as every single person, meaning in the Jewish people in the desert being counted, as every person not just being uniquely exactly the same as everybody else, infinite, but also a very specific role for each person that is tied to who they are and who their family is and why they are and how they exist. And this is what we say in general. We say when people are, Hashem, God doesn't create a person, doesn't put you on earth to do somebody else's role. There's something that only you uniquely came to this world to do, and only something that you uniquely came to this world that can be done by you, right? Which is
where the individualism fits into that collectivism.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, and that is emphasized in this double count, or in the two sides of this count,
of the top down and down up.
Well, the idea that it's one count and we're counting everyone and we don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a count. It's the idea of counting.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, we are giving them, we're giving them families and tribes, and being very specific, and they have to camp in specific places, and like all the details and the complexity that go with it. We want to emphasize both of these things at the same time. Like all good Jewish things, we want to paradox. We want to emphasize the paradox and bring out the paradox because paradoxes are beautiful, as long as you can understand them. I find it very annoying when you say it's a paradox, but you haven't done any work to explain
why that paradox,
how we got there,
yeah,
and why it's a real paradox, and how you have to limit it. You have to do as much as you can to limit the paradox to the very, very, very core of the issue. So you have to explain how it fits together everywhere else, and clarify the infinity, clarify the oneness, clarify the simplicity, clarify the complexities, clarify everything, and explain. Now, this happens to be they sit in the middle of the core. The core of the nuclear reactor has two things that are happening at the same time, but only the core. And because of that, it has a lot of these properties that then
that can relate to one of those two.
Distribute everywhere out, and you can see echoes of that paradox everywhere. That's fine, but you have to say the paradox only sits in that as limited as possible, so that way, otherwise, you're just being lazy.
Yeah. Okay. So we have the count.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that count is a double-edged count essentially.
Beautiful. Is that Sefer? Is that Parshat BaMidbar?
I think it's Parshat BaMidbar.
It's Parshat BaMidbar. Thank you very much.
Well done.